Welcome back. I know it's been like a month and some. So I'm not in the bar today. Today we're in the sunken living room. It's like probably 8 inches down, which is kind of a fun 70s feature. And today we are installing hardwood flooring, engineered hardwood flooring, not the actual nice thick stuff. So I've saved you the pain of watching me measure everything 45,000 times and make sure everything lines up. But basically, all the prep that I've done in here is go through and vacuum all of these spaces like multiple times. And then I've gone through and checked all of my gaps, made sure there's screws in all of the places. You'll have to excuse the cat that's meowing in the background. He's dying from starvation. And then what I'm actually going through now is getting my first points done. So I've got measurements of the room, and what we need 167 3/8 on this corner and on that corner, and we need the middle nut to be all flexy. So we have one piece of the trim that we're going to go with so we can make sure that our gapping is correct and we don't end up with a hole. And basically, a handful of the planning that goes into this is we know our planks are 7.5 inches. Our room is 175 inches. So some quick math tells us we're gonna have 23 1/3 planks going this way. So hopefully we have enough. And then that's gonna leave us 2.5 inches roughly on the end piece, which I would prefer it be a little bit more, but I actually don't want to rip a bunch of this to start with. The final pieces are going to go in this back side over here. So it's actually going to work out okay because we're both physically fastening with staples, and then we're also going to be gluing, so I'll be able to glue it in and not have too many issues. So basically our start corner is right there, and our finish corner is going to be over here. So should be all right. We're definitely not going to get everything done today. My goal is to get to the edge of this underlayment. So reason I'm using underlayment, I don't want a hollow space between the two, so I find that gapping helps with that hollowness between the subfloor and the engineered hardwood. I did it on that floor and it turned out really nice. It's nice and quiet. But I've also gone through, and this has been like weeks and weeks in advance, I've gone through walking all over all the spaces that you would step, making sure there's no squeaks, making sure all the floorboards are nice and tight. So everything's been tightened, everything's been vacuumed, everything's been hammered down. There's no high points. I went through the whole thing with a big giant 6-foot level, leveled everything. So this floor was actually much better than the top floor. So we're happy with that. So basically right now, I've got this piece cut to fit this gap. I just got done taking out 4 million staples holding the carpet in here. So now we're gonna get this piece fit in, and then hopefully we can get everything lined up and it won't be a giant disaster. All right, I've probably spent about 20 minutes swearing and working on trying to get this to all line up. Had to get a beer because that's where we're at with this. So really the goal is, obviously this is a 1970s house, and I happen to know that this thing was built by a person and not a company. Not that that necessarily makes a difference. But the first boards are the most important. We need to make sure that it's pretty square with the room. And if it's not square with the room, then we're gonna have ourselves a big problem. So I'm not necessarily worried about the gapping against the wall. What I'm most concerned about is the distance from that wall to this edge and this wall to this edge. And the issue with that is that it could be off on that wall or it could be off on this wall. And I guess right now what I'm trying to decide on is, based on looks, how do we feel? The other thing I did too is I took my giant level and I'm going through and I'm just making sure that all these gaps are straight. And then we're making sure that we don't have any openings in any of this. So any opening is basically gonna open up wider and wider if we're not straight on this first set of boards. And you can see our gapping is pretty consistent across the board here. You can usually make up, not that I'm an expert by any stretch of any imagination on installing flooring, but you can usually make up for that on some places you can make up for it. But the key thing is making sure that we're nice and tight and that we have no issues between any of our joints, because if we have issues between our joints, that's going to open up further down the line and cause quite a few issues. So that's really what my biggest concern is making sure that where we have a joint, we don't have an open. That looks pretty good. So I think this is probably where it's going to live. Now they do make, this is not a floating floor. We're going with a secured floor. You can get the little pieces and get this all lined up. But what I'm going to probably do is, I know roughly where my trim is going to sit. So I'm going to take my nail gun and I'm going to nail gun down, or I'm going to tack all these spots down. And that'll keep this floor from moving while we go and put the next levels on. So, all right, let's get going on that, because otherwise we're going to be here all day wishing that we just started at some point. I drank some more beer. That's helping. So the issue I'm dealing with is my measurements say that this board, the way it is currently kicked this way. And this side is kicked this way. However, when you visually look at it, it looks like it's pretty much dead in line with this particular line. I'm almost tempted to pull back the carpet here, well, the rug, and then make sure that it visually is in line. This is the issue I'm dealing with, is I don't trust my measurements. It says I'm off by a ½ inch, which theoretically is not a huge deal. However, as you continue down the floor, and excuse the mess, this is, it's our living room. It's been kind of a place where flooring goes to live for a long time. So realistically, I think I'm gonna pull back this rug and I'm gonna give a line and I'm gonna see if that line lines up. I may need more beer. That will help with this. It may just be a shoot it in and call it good and deal with the repercussions later. Because we can rip different lengths down there, and we have the benefit of the entire heat register going over the entire thing. So we do have some grace. Carpet's getting pulled back. I know the professionals out there are probably watching this going, you're doing everything very wrong. But man, I'll tell you what, I think that's about as in line with that as we're gonna get. All right, for better or worse, that's now stapled in on the corners. So next we're gonna run through and staple all this down. And then after we staple it, then we can start laying our next rows. Okay, first row installed. Little hiccup here and there, but I think everybody stayed in line. So the next step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna vacuum everything. I don't want any of this caught between. And then we'll just make sure everything's good and square still, because it's still pretty early on in the process. So vacuum, level, make sure everything's good. And then I'm just using the level as a straight edge. And then we'll get our next rows ready. And we're actually gonna be gluing and shooting these in. Why? I don't know. I just do it. But should be going okay. We'll find out. Okay, we got one little spot that kind of got away on us here, right there. I know that's being really picky, but you have to remember this is the first of 23 planks. So we're gonna have to make sure that we absorb that a little bit as we go with our second set, so that maybe there will be a little gap there, but it's better to have a little gap there than build a giant gap further down. All right, first box installed. So a couple of hiccups. Like I said, that first row is the most important, so you can see kind of what happens when you don't get that spot on perfect. Little gap, but not the end of the world. So the next thing I'm working on is getting our starter piece, which is going to be the cutoff of this. So I just usually lay it the opposite way. Kind of the rule I use for any time I'm laying flooring. We can go a little tighter because we're physically fastened, but we're not gonna go, we're gonna leave a little room for expansion if that were to somehow happen. So I'm gonna go get this cut, then we've got our finished piece here, and we've got our starting piece for down there, and then we'll just kinda keep rocking and rolling. Okay, so we got next row laid out. Basically what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that there's not going to be a point that a joint will have another joint right next to it. So the nice thing about natural hardwoods is you get away with inconsistencies, which is really nice because none of the boards will match each other. So like this one in the beginning is very, very blonde, almost doesn't look like it's part of the set. However, when you start looking at everything, it does blend right in. So, and that was our end piece, which became our beginning piece. Trying to minimize waste, and then we're gonna do a little piece. This piece takes care of this right here. Then we're gonna do another, and we're gonna finish with a long piece to make up for these joints. So we're just kind of staggering our joints and making it look like it was intentional. All right, so we got that first row set of rows done. So we're 4 through all the way across. And obviously the vacuum is moved and lots of things are going to be moving over to there. And then I read the directions. So something funny, God gives you 2 eyes and for some reason I can't use them all the time. Happens at work too. So gray side up. Luckily I didn't make it to the area that I was really concerned about blocking, which is where the stain disaster has happened. My assumption is that when they built the house, this was the room that they chose to do all the staining in. So yeah, luckily figured that out now, which will help. So I'm not going to lose any sleep though. Really, realistically, the layer that I'm putting down is more for a sound dampening, not so much for the benefits of blocking vapors. We're not really in need of a vapor barrier here. However, over there, all that stain would be really sucky to have that suck up into our hardwood. So, all right, well, I am going to get set up and get going on another set of rows here. Hopefully I can get like 3 more done before the end of the day, and then we'll call it. Nice thing about doing your own home project is you can stop and take a break. Then the other part, all of that flooring needs to get picked up and moved over here, and then the piano has to get turned as far as I can go that way. And then I can keep going, and then we're gonna have a party where I have a bunch of people over and give them beer, and we'll probably pick this up and then move it to somewhere. So yes, fun times indeed. The supervisor says we're doing okay. Having a hard sleep, even through all the nailing and the pounding, he's just powering through it. All right, so while doing that, I messed up. I didn't get my block all the way down and smashed the edge of it, so I actually took off the finish here on this edge. The thing is to not get too worried about when you do something like that. You could get worked up, I guess, if you were on like your 5th or 6th piece that you've done that to, but I've got a whole section that's going to need this section cut off. So I'm not going to lose too much sleep on it. This will be a great starting piece for over in the other corner. So yeah, it happens. I'm not perfect. So new starting piece and we'll keep going. All right, I'm pretty much out of space, so we got a little bit more time lapse we can do, but I'd like to point out how that worked out by some miracle. That's gonna be really nice. I don't have to worry about making a cut because the piece of wood that's probably gonna go here is gonna cover that whole space. Yeah, that'll work for me. All right, I'm getting close to calling it a night. This is how far I got. I'm probably just going to finish up this row and this row quick. It's probably like 3 more planks, but not too bad. Yeah, a couple hiccups here and there, but I never claimed to be professional. Kind of fun, the color difference between these two rooms. So this is our extremely dark room. And then it steps into what's going to be an extremely light room. So this room actually has been a huge project that I've been working on for a couple months now. So this had a big swirly texture on it. I completely removed that texture, retextured it with like a skip trowel, and then the ceiling has been sanded down, and then I left that finish on it and primed over it. So it's one continuous color in here. And then the goal will be to get some speakers up in the corners. There's like where they had some hanging plants in the past, and those will actually be where my speaker holes will be, which works out really good. And then I'm not sure exactly what the plan is for this room. Probably a nice sitting room. I don't know if we'll necessarily put a TV in here, but obviously my daughter practices piano in here. And there's quite a bit of work yet to do in painting and finishing up the electrical. Someone has to go and level all this stuff. I didn't quite get those knocked out exactly how they needed to be. This house is wired a little weird, but it made it fun. But you can see, step down and into the same style of hardwood. So the same finish, the same cut, but a different color, which kind of makes it fun. So, and you can see our signature kind of black color throughout the whole home. So a lot of what our home kind of will have is all black receptacles and black covers, and then like black light fixtures with gold accents. So every room that has like a chandelier has a gold accent above it, and then it just kind of slowly is building itself out. But hopefully this helps inspire you to work on a project in your house. I know we all have those projects laying around, like a box of hardwood just laying in your living room for a month and a half. And we won't talk about the other box of hardwood that's in the other room that's been in there for 2 years. That's a secret project. But this one hopefully will be coming to an end. Like I said, I got to get it up to the piano, and then we get to move everything that's over here, and then hopefully I can get that piano rolled tight up against the wall, and then we'll be able to actually work and continue this space. I have to paint a little bit more of the hot water system, get that all cleaned up, get these boxes squared away, and then maybe a window covering of some variety. So lots to do. The boss has said I've done nothing wrong yet, which is pretty good. So he has been paying very close attention to every project I've been doing, and every step and every mistake. He's been very focused, but gave me passing grades today. Happy projecting.